On a quiet Tuesday morning, Harold Thompson woke up exactly at 6:32 a.m., just like he had done every single day for the last 14 years. His alarm clock didn't ring because he had stopped using it long ago. His body simply knew when to wake up, and he found that reliable enough. He sat up slowly, blinked twice, and stared at the beige wall in front of him. The wall had a tiny crack in the upper left corner, which he noticed every morning but never felt bothered enough to repair. He simply acknowledged it with a small nod before putting on his slippers. Harold stood up and stretched his arms halfway, then stopped because he didn't feel the need to stretch any further. He walked to the bathroom, flipped on the light, and looked in the mirror. His hair looked almost the same as it had the day before, slightly messy, slightly flat, and slightly gray. He thought about brushing it, then decided he would do that after brushing his teeth. He reached for his toothbrush, applied exactly the amount of toothpaste he always used, and brushed for 1 minute and 40 seconds. He didn't time it intentionally. That was simply the natural length of his brushing routine. After brushing, he washed his face, dried his hands with the same towel he used every day, and finally brushed his hair with 3 gentle strokes. He looked at the mirror again, felt satisfied enough, and switched off the light. He walked to the kitchen and opened the fridge. Inside, on the top shelf, was a half-used carton of orange juice. Next to it sat a container of overnight oats that he had prepared the night before, following the same recipe he had followed every Tuesday for 3 years. He took both items out, placed them on the table, and went to get a spoon. The oats tasted exactly as he expected. Not good, not bad, just oats, milk, and a few chia seeds. He ate slowly, staring out the window at the empty street. A squirrel ran across the road, but even that seemed like a very normal event to him. When he finished breakfast, he rinsed his bowl, placed it in the drying rack, and wiped the table even though there was nothing on it. Then he walked to the living room to check the weather on his small digital display. The forecast said it would be mildly cloudy with occasional light breeze. Harold nodded, finding the weather suitably unremarkable. He changed into his work clothes, khaki pants, and a pale blue shirt. The shirt had been ironed the night before, but a small wrinkle still appeared near the shoulder. Harold looked at it, thought about ironing it again, then decided it wasn't worth the trouble. He put on his shoes, grabbed his keys from the bowl near the door, and stepped outside. The walk to the bus stop took 7 minutes, but Harold always left 15 minutes early, just in case the bus arrived ahead of schedule, which it never did. He walked slowly, passing the same houses and the same mailbox with a slightly tilted post. A dog barked once from behind a fence, but Harold didn't react because that dog barked every morning. At the bus stop, he stood under the same faded sign. A woman with a red scarf stood there too, as she did every morning. They never talked. They simply nodded politely at each other before looking in opposite directions. The bus arrived at 7:05 a.m., exactly on time. Harold stepped in, tapped his card, and found his usual seat near the middle, second row on the left. He looked out the window as the bus moved, passing the same bakery, the same gas station, and the same park bench with peeling green paint. When he reached his workplace, a small administrative office that handled inventory records for several local businesses, he greeted the receptionist with the same words he always used. "Good morning, Janet," to which she replied, as always, "Good morning, Harold." He walked to his desk, sat down, adjusted his chair by 1 inch and turned on his computer. The startup screen showed a spinning icon that took exactly 20 seconds to complete. Harold waited without expression. Once the computer loaded, he opened the spreadsheet he had left off the day before. It contained hundreds of rows of product numbers and dates. Harold slowly scrolled down until he found the next empty cell. His job was to verify delivery logs and enter confirmation data. It wasn't exciting work, but it was consistent, predictable, and quiet, which suited Harold perfectly. Around 10:15 a.m., he took a short break to refill his water bottle. The water cooler made a soft bubbling noise as it dispensed the water, and Harold paused for a moment just to listen. It wasn't an interesting sound, but it was a familiar one, and he liked familiar things. He returned to his desk and continued typing. Lunch came at exactly noon. Harold took out his sandwich turkey and lettuce on whole wheat bread. No sauce, no cheese, no extras. He ate the first half in silence. A coworker walked by and said, "Nice day today, isn't it?" Harold nodded and said, "Yes, mild weather." Then he finished his sandwich, drank some water, and sat quietly until his break ended. The afternoon passed in the same slow, steady rhythm. More data, more checking, more typing. By 4 p.m., Harold had completed everything scheduled for that day. He shut down his computer, put on his jacket, and left the office. The bus ride home looked just like the bus ride in the morning, except the sky was slightly darker. When Harold arrived at his stop, he walked home at the same pace as always. He unlocked his door, stepped inside, and took a deep breath. Nothing in the apartment had changed while he was gone, which he found comforting. For dinner, he heated up leftover vegetable soup. It was plain but warm. After eating, he washed the bowl, dried it, and placed it back in the cabinet. He sat in his living room chair and read a simple brochure about home safety. The brochure wasn't interesting, but he finished it anyway. At 9 p.m., Harold brushed his teeth again, changed into his pajamas, turned off the lights, and lay down in bed. As he stared at the ceiling, he thought about how the day had been almost exactly like every other Tuesday. And that, to Harold, felt perfectly fine.